Guys, today we're giving you a first look at the Tamron 50-300 here, not the 400, the 300 here. And I'm trying to still wrap my mind around this lens because I can't believe we're getting so many great options from Tamron. They just can't miss. So I wanted to give you my first impressions. I've got my full in-depth review coming, but as usual, I'm gonna put this thing through its paces. And I thought I'd just give you kind of my first spitballing impressions of this lens. Of course, in comparison to the big 50-400, which I am in love with. I think it's one of the best all-in-one lenses out there, but for telephotos and on a budget, man, this thing is very, very hard to beat. So yeah, looking at the 50-300 here, it's smaller, it's lighter, it's cheaper, but there is more than just that 100 millimeters difference between these two lenses. So I thought I'd just kind of give you my thoughts overall and show you the differences between these two right off the bat and where so far I'm seeing some kind of variations and big differences in terms of performance and whatnot. So first, let's talk about the price, because they are pretty substantially different in price. This guy is only $799 USD, which is just fantastic. For what you get in this thing, sub 1,000 is utterly mind-blowing. They're both gonna have the incredible Tamron warranty, which is up to 7 years in some countries, so very, very good, lots of value there. But this 50-400 here is priced at $1299 USD, so quite a big difference there. So I just don't want you thinking that the only difference between these two lenses is that 100 millimeters. It's not the case. There's definitely some more bells and whistles in this guy, and so far, I'm gonna have to say that the overall performance is definitely gonna be better with the 50-400 here. Now, if you do remember when this guy came out, right off the bat, it did have some pretty big struggles with autofocus, especially when it came to autofocus continuous and shooting fast-moving subjects. It really didn't keep up, but they really quickly released a firmware update, and this thing became one of my go-tos. I'm not gonna lie, this thing is fantastic, and now it's gonna pretty much keep up with the best of them, although of course this is a third-party lens. It's capped around 15 frames per second shooting with any Sony faster shooting camera. So that's worth noting. Let's talk about some of the actual physical differences. So first of all, obviously, you can see the size is going to be a little bit different. The 50-300 here is going to be 5.9 inches or about 150 millimeters, where the 50-400 is about 7.2 inches or 183 millimeters. But they, of course, both extend as they zoom, and I was a little bit surprised to see just how much this 300 actually zooms out. It's a little bit surprising, considering it's so darn light. And that is one of the biggest factors, I think, for a lot of people. This can be such a great kind of grab, throw it in your bag, and have a kind of all-in-one shooting wildlife lens that can still get out pretty far without kind of breaking your back. And the overall weight difference is quite substantial. The 50-400 comes in at 1,155 grams, or just over 2.5 pounds, where the new 50-300 here comes in at only 665 grams, which is just under 1.5 pounds. So about a pound difference here, and that might not seem like a heck of a lot, but when you actually pick them up and you can see the size difference, it is considerable. So with that in mind, one of the tests that I love for travel is it gonna fit reasonably in my tiny little 10-liter bag here? This is kind of my go-to bag. It's a 10-liter bag, and I like to fit everything that I can in there, and both of these lenses will fit. This one, absolutely no problem. This one is a little bit of a stretch, but I definitely make it work. So they're both gonna get check marks when it comes to being a good travel lens. Next up, they're gonna have the exact same aperture, a maximum of f4.5, and as you zoom out, they're gonna both end up at f6.3. So definitely nothing outstanding or mind-blowing in that regard. They're gonna both kind of struggle in lower light. They both have the same consistent 67mm filter threads, and they both actually have 9 aperture blades. Now for me personally, and I'll let you be the judge, I find that the images that I'm getting out of the 50-400 just more pleasing. Now we're gonna get into all that, of course, in the full in-depth review, but overall, for the sharpness and the optics overall, and just the character and quality, the edge for me definitely goes to the 50-400. And that might not necessarily be just the added compression that you're gonna get to be able to reach out a little bit further. Optically, they're gonna be pretty similar, but there is just something about this lens that just, I like a little bit more. Again, I'm going through and testing this thing to its absolute capacity, but that's just my initial impressions so far. And that's not really surprising, is it? Because after all, this is quite a bit more expensive. Now, before we dive into some example shots, I wanted to just touch on the, once again, amazing minimum focus distance that they've actually been able to bring over to this guy, unsurprisingly, at 50 millimeters. Now, Tamron has just done a fantastic job of giving us incredible magnification ratios in our lenses as of late, and this one is absolutely no different, giving us a half macro at 50 millimeters and a minimum focus distance of an incredible 8.7 inches on the wide side and only 35.4 inches on the telephoto side of things when you're zoomed all the way out. In comparison, the 50-400 is going to have a minimum focus distance of about 9.8 inches on the wide side and all the way out to 59.1 inches on the telephoto side of things. So there is a difference there, but once again, these are both incredibly capable, making these lenses some of the most versatile on the market in terms of what you're capable of doing from 50 all the way out to either 300 or 400 here. So that said, let's dive in and have a look at some more footage and some shots that I've taken with this little guy. I have put this thing through its paces with some birds in flight, some pretty tricky situations, some low light and whatnot. And of course, as always, let me know down in the comments what you think of what I've got with this thing so far. Here's an autofocus test that I did on my Sony a7 IV with a 39 shot burst. And as you can see, it's just about flawless, which is quite impressive. Once again, I'll leave the optics and the sharpness to a later video, but just know in terms of the autofocus, it's more than capable of keeping up from something moving moderately to quickly. If you are considering buying this lens, make sure you let me know down in the comments which are the biggest factors that are going to lead you to actually pulling the trigger. If you do have experience with the 50-400 as well, let me know. Here's a few more of my favorite shots so far, and I wanted to touch on who I think this lens is going to be best for. I think this is going to be a phenomenal lens for somebody maybe just getting started out, or maybe an intermediate ready to get rid of that kit lens and invest in something that's going to do a lot of things pretty decently. If you are looking for a telephoto lens that can also do some macro-like stuff, there's really not much that can compete with this lens. It offers so much for the money. Throw in that awesome Tamron warranty, and honestly, I think we've got ourselves another winner. At the end of the day, it all depends on what type of shooting you're going to be doing. No, this lens isn't going to be my first pick for low light work or portraits, but for an inexpensive wildlife and landscape and city and just about everything in between, this thing is a slam dunk so far. So there you have it, guys. There's my first impressions of the new Tamron 50-300. Check out my full in-depth review and, of course, some more detailed comparison videos coming anytime now. It might even be out at the time you're watching this video. Guys, if you did like this video and you want to see more just like it, hit that like and subscribe button. Join the community. Thanks so much for watching. If you wanted to pick this lens up, make sure you check out the affiliate links down in the description. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.